Good evening. Tonight our speaker is our abbot, Les Kaye. Welcome, Les. Is there a title for tonight's talk?
Zen is not a search engine.
Zen is not a search engine. Got it.
Okay.
Welcome, Les.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So, everything in our world has its own distinguishing marks. Everything has its own form and its own color. Everything is unique. Everything is unique from everything else. But as our teaching tries to encourage us to understand, at the same time that everything is unique, everything is the same. Every unique being is expressing the same thing, and that includes each of us. In other words, everything is expressing Buddha. This is the foundation of the teaching. However, if we search for this Buddha quality in things, we can't find it. I wonder if anybody's ever tried to do that. Look inside things and see if you can find the inherent Buddha quality. You can't find it. And it's not that it's hiding from us. And it's not that it is trying to be elusive. It's just that how can something look for itself? But that's what we do. That's our tendency. What we try to do is look for the truth of things as a separate thing, as if the truth were external, as if the truth were outside of ourselves, as if the truth were apart, different from our unique self. And I think we all come to this practice because we have this tendency to look for the truth outside ourselves. We come to this practice because we want to understand the truth of our life. And we can become disappointed after many years of seeking and feeling that we haven't found it. We haven't found that truth. But we come to the practice with the hope that the practice will reveal the truth for us. The truth that we feel has been hidden from us for our whole life. And so we come to the practice because we want the practice to make our searching easier and to help us understand what we desperately desire to know. After a time, we will discover that our practice does not work that way because our practice is not a search engine. It is not a thing that can simplify our searching. So when we encounter a difficulty in our practice, it's usually because of our tendency to look outside of ourselves, to use our intellect and to use our reasoning to sort through all the various possibilities. But we cannot find an answer that way. We cannot set out all the various possibilities and pick the one that seems most likely. That's not how we discover the truth of what we're doing with this life. But if we do use the practice as a kind of search engine, we will become frustrated and we will become disappointed in our practice. And then we won't know what to do. But this difficulty and this frustration truly is our practice. Because without the difficulty, how else will we be able to recognize our habit and our tendency? Without the frustration, how will we ever learn to see things in a different way? You know, if your practice is very easy and very comfortable, it's probably a waste of time. The only way to appreciate the pure quality of everything is to practice in the midst of whatever difficulty we come across. This is our only chance. This would be the only way to learn how to really see things as they are. As humans, we have a tendency to be a little bit too quick to judge things and to compare things. And you may have experienced that yourself in your own life, too quick to judge. It happens when our mind is seeking for something that it can use to its own advantage. It happens when we are not satisfied with things as we find them. But even if we experience satisfaction, a rare satisfaction, it will evaporate quickly. Because we won't stay satisfied with it. We'll keep looking for something better. The founder of the Soto Zen school in Japan was Dogen, as you all know. And he said at one point, not having been born at the center of the world, we have not seen flourishing lands. This ignorance comes from not knowing the sound and form before our eyes. And as usual, Dogen is being very paradoxical here, not easy to grasp. Because despite what his words say, what he means is we are born at the center of the world. We are born at the very core of reality. Because we are, each of us, we are inherently intimate. But we don't recognize our intimacy. Because we have a tendency to only see the differences in things. we have a very difficult time recognizing our universal nature and the universal nature of all things. And this is our practice. It's like you go to a movie to see, you go to see a scary movie, a horror movie. And in the movie, you see somebody entering a haunted house and exploring a haunted house. And then you see somebody sneaking up behind them, and you want to yell, "Turn around, turn around." Or you may be looking at a very vast desert, not realizing that a lush forest is behind you. If only you can change the direction of your gaze. Spiritual practice starts with a feeling of suffering. And we suffer, as we've learned, we suffer because all things change, everything changes. And we cannot control and we cannot hold on to anything. And when we cannot accept this truth, we will try to hold on to something that we cannot grasp. We try to hold on. And when it does slip away, we create a problem by taking it personally. And we blame others and we blame the world for our unhappiness. And when we finally feel, when we subtly feel the frustration with that way of seeing the world, we come to practice. We finally feel frustrated in how we have been addressing the world. But still, even though we come to practice, still we want something substantial that lasts. And that continues to be our problem. So we can't change what is true. And suffering arises when we cannot accept that truth. And we don't realize that we are trying to change it. And that only leads to impatience, frustration, anger, bad feelings, and suffering. Trying to change what is immutable and can't be changed. And fortunately for us, we do have this practice. We have discovered this practice that will help us see things without distortion from the center of the world, not from the edge. And when we see things from the center, then we understand in our very marrow that nothing changes, that nothing lasts, that everything changes, nothing lasts. When we wholeheartedly realize that and wholeheartedly accept it, then we can let go of the desire to hold on. And then we can appreciate each individual moment as the only reality there is. So when the focus of our practice is to put ourselves fully into what we're doing, then desire is no longer a problem. And that's why in a monastery, in a very strict monastery, the monks are always admonished, pay attention to what you're doing, put yourself into it, fully put yourself into it. So if we have some problem, or we experience some kind of difficulty, having that to work on is good practice. Your problem is good practice. So we work on it without feeling sorry for ourselves for having a problem. We simply dive right into it and give our full attention to it. Even though part of us says, I'd rather be comfortable. And one of the problems that we work on is the very confusion that led us to come to the practice in the first place. The confusion that arises from the tendency to look at things as outside ourselves. When we are fully involved in what we are doing in each moment, we don't have any time to judge things. We don't have any time to compare. So Suzuki Roshi said in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, he said, the good is not different from the bad. The bad is good and the good is bad. They are two sides of the same coin. When we flip a coin, we don't say that the heads is better than the tails. We don't judge a coin that way. Both sides are equal. Good is not different from the bad, he says. Two sides of the same coin. So Suzuki Roshi urges us to find enlightenment in beauty and find enlightenment in difficulties. And when we understand this point, that's when we become fully alive. Does anybody have a question tonight? Yes, Brenda.
Um, um, so I think earlier, at the earlier part of the talk, you said that we don't try to change anything. And how do you reconcile that with taking, action in the world to make the world a better place? Or do we just not try to do anything?
We cannot change the way things are. But we can act in our everyday lives to use things to help reduce suffering. Things change whether we want them to or not. But while we are changing and things are changing, we cooperate. Our changing natures cooperate to eliminate suffering and help provide an environment so that we and everybody else can practice and understand the truth. Let things change and let them flow. So that the inherent truth of ourselves is not encumbered by striving. Giuseppe.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First question is, so our smartness, our intelligence is of no use in our spiritual practice. And from what you're saying is really good, mostly to compete with each other in the daily life. Is that the case? Is that what they're saying?
That we should compete with each other?
No, that our smartness, being smart, making that intellectual effort for being smart, in the end, from a very high-level perspective, doesn't gain us much or nothing at all, and just it's something we used to play in a competition a little bit with each other. So is that what you're saying?
We should be very cautious in trying to use our intellect to gain an advantage over the world, or over somebody else. And we should be very cautious about trying to use our intellect to fully understand what's really going on. And this teaching has been handed down for thousands of years. Don't let your intellect get in the way. Don't let your judging mind get in the way. Don't let your desire to be better get in the way. Whatever we do in life, whether we succeed or fail, whether we are better than somebody else or not quite as good, it really makes no difference in what you say, the big picture. The big picture is about not creating harm, relieving suffering. This is the basis of our practice. So it's okay to go about our daily life and do the things we do, make our effort, have our pastimes, enjoy each other, enjoy ourselves. But don't let them overwhelm us so that we lose sight of why we are really here. Have a good time, but that's not why we are really here. We don't have to punish ourselves and deprive ourselves of enjoying our life. We should. But let's be careful of not making it the number one priority. So we should enjoy our life, but keep our heart very big and very open. And include each other in the same way that we are all included here tonight. Thank you.
I have a second question,
Oh,
if I can.
Okay.
Um, I'm hearing that we should not rely on um, things because they change, and we should not lean uh, on the results on something external. And I know that is the difficult part, almost the koan for our normal self that engages in things for an external result. So this means, and so this is would be impossible. You know, we do things because we are attached to the result in a normal way often. But so what you're saying is that we should, if we try to put it more in a positive term, rely only on our true self and always stay there at the center of the world, keeping this constant attention to everything that goes on, everything that we do, to avoid to get distracted, get attached to our result, and rely on something external all of a sudden, and lose that vision. So are you saying that so we should go through our life always residing in this in this bigger self and that is the way to solve this impossible con of doing things without being attached to them?
Keep your attitude soft. and flexible and open. And then your koan is solved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave?
Thank you so much for your talk, Les. I guess just to kind of continue with thread that Giuseppe and Brenda were raising, if I understand what you're saying, one way of putting it is that when we perceive suffering, when we hear the cries of the world, we tend to react to that by thinking about it and concluding judgmentally that that's not the way things should be. That's not the way reality should be. That's not the way the world should be. And that lack of acceptance of the way things are doesn't really help anybody, and it clouds our own minds. I'm reminded of something. I don't think it was necessarily original with Greg the Tanto at Tasahara. I remember him saying one night, when you hear the cries of the world, help the one who's right in front of you. And I know I've mentioned this before, but I think it also bears repeating again. The wonderful thing that I heard Stephen Batchelor say one time, he said, the way is not a path from where you were in the past to where you want to be in the future. The way is something that tells you how to put one foot in front of the other, right where you are right now. So without becoming intellectually attached to solving all the world's problems and arguing that it's not the way things should be, we should just act with compassion in the moment, every moment. Is that basically the point?
Yeah, be soft and accepting, and don't shut out people and don't shut out things, and don't shut out experiences because they are difficult or unpleasant. We have to be open to everything. This openness is this openness is the source of the feeling of joy that we can have in our life. You know, if we try to stop the ocean, it will knock us down. Our other choice is to swim. So let's swim with the life that we have. Thanks, Dave.
Don? Yeah.
In talking about change and not changing, isn't it so that with every breath we take, every time we bend over to tie our shoes or open or close a door, we change the world. The world is changed. Is it so that, you know, everything changes and everything we do changes, and everything everybody else does, and everything does changes the world. So there's no way to not change it, or not be a part of the change, or not be to not be swimming. You know, it seems like we're swimming whether we know it or not. and we're changing things whether we know it or not. Is that sort of the way it is?
Things change without our effort.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If we breathe, it
But
changes.
You don't have to tie your shoe to have the world change.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, David.
Thank you for your talk, Les. It's very good to hear the rhythm and the tone of your voice again. Hasn't changed much.
Well, that's good.
You mentioned joy a little bit past, and I've been needing to resort to finding a continued motivation for practice. And one of those motivations is taken from various books and other teachings is sympathetic joy. And I get that I can't rely on the outside world. But when I look in the inside world, nobody's home. Nobody's home. I've sympathetic joy, I understand, is a result of good practice. It's not a technique to develop practice. But, and given that, could you say a word about continuing motivation to practice?
You can be your own motivation to practice. And it will be helpful. Your motivation will be helped by knowing that you have many friends accompanying you. As you can see, if you click gallery view here on the screen. So when we see each other in each other's presence like this, that should help our motivation. I'm not alone. I feel something, and so does everybody else. So we motivate each other by showing up for each other.
Yes, I do feel that. That's
Good.
thank you.
Good. Thank you. Oh, yes, Nick. Hi, Nick.
Thank you for your talk, Les. Would you mind sharing a few personal words about Sojourn Mel Weitzman, who passed 2 weeks ago?
Mel made everybody feel comfortable by his quiet presence. Mel gave no indication of having any kind of personal ambition or personal agenda. It seems to me that when he found this practice, he said, oh, this is the right thing to do. I'm going to do this. And he did it with an unselfish attitude and an open mind. And he had a big heart. And it was good just to be around him. He didn't have to say anything wise or clever. It was nice just to be around him. And he had a very quiet laugh, you know, when he laughed, it's kind of quiet. Mel was comfortable to be around, and he sort of, and of course, he was active in the very early days of when Zen was coming to San Francisco. And some people came with, I'm sure some people came with uncertainty and a bit of confusion in the strange thing called Zen practice. And I think then that when they were around Mel, they could say to themselves, oh, I made the right choice. And that's pretty powerful, you know. And that's a lesson we can all learn. Will people who first come to this practice experience each of us? And because of how they experience us, will they say to themselves, oh, I came to the right place? So in his own quiet way, he gave evidence of real understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Les.
Teresa.
Mhm.
Oh. Teresa.
Hi, Les. Thank you
Hi,
for
Teresa.
your talk. Were you gonna say something before I ask my question?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Well, I like the image that you mentioned about seeing a vast desert in front of us, and then not knowing that there is a forest behind. Even though when you mentioned that, I almost felt more attracted by the desert than by the forest. So I thought, oh, why would I want to change my point of view? That image of the desert looks so nice. But anyway, what your talk made me think about was being ready. Being ready. Many years ago, when I was working in New York, an editor that I had at the time told me, I give you opportunities and you run away. And that, that really stayed with me. And recently, I heard this parable of the son in the Lotus Sutra of the son who doesn't know that he has a very wealthy father and he lives in misery. And the father understands that the guy, the son, is not ready to receive the gift of his inheritance. So he gives him a very, very basic job where he stays for many, many years till he's ready to receive the gift that he has for him. So he doesn't have to be poor anymore. So that's something that I've been thinking about, when I think about, I guess maybe there's not a shortcut that, if we're not ready, we're not ready, and we have to just keep working. But I wonder if you have any comments about this. Thank you.
When we are young, or when our experience is limited, we rely on others to tell us that we're not ready. But after some time, as our experience matures, we can no longer rely on others to tell us we're not ready. We have to know ourselves well enough to know how ready we are, how much effort we have to make, how we can use and share what we've learned. And knowing or being aware of our readiness, requires great honesty. And being continually aware of how our mind is working and how our heart is working. I was reading, I once read one of the sutra that covered Buddha's last day. His famous final words were, be a light unto yourselves, be a lantern unto yourselves, something like that. His students were very unhappy that he was passing away. He was sick and he was dying. And they came to him and they were crying that the teacher who they had relied on for all these years, what will we do? What will we do when you're gone? And he said, it's very simple. Be a light unto yourselves. And at some point in our practice, and some point in our life, we have to listen carefully to that teaching, and we have to take it on as our responsibility. So let's work on being ready.
I have a quick follow-up. Vita, you placed too much emphasis, maybe tonight, the way I received it, on personal responsibility. And not that that is not right, but isn't that true that it's not only about us, that is always us with others, how we get to understand things? Is engaging in a conversation. It's not only about just our own effort. If that's the case, it feels a little bit lonely. The way is a lonely way.
What creates the loneliness?
What creates the loneliness is thinking that it's just our own effort.
Oh.
That is just it's just us. That we are alone on this.
Yeah. I think loneliness, a feeling of loneliness occurs when we want too much from each other. You know, if we have a mind that says, oh, this person isn't giving me what I want, that's the start of loneliness. Because that feeling creates a separation. So if we can let go of wanting something from each other, there will be a feeling of inclusion rather than loneliness. It's like saying to the world, here I am, you can join me. I'm ready to join you. But if we say, well, maybe I'll join you and maybe I won't, first show me your attitude. That can lead to loneliness. So we just go forward and try to be with each other the best way we can. Thank you. You know, we don't need anybody outside ourselves to tell us that we know it. But we do need each other. We all need each other to affirm who we are. It's when we meet with each other or with strangers, anybody, you know, without limitations, then we know everything and we don't need anybody to tell us. But being with each other is how we remind ourselves to be present.
Any more questions for Les?
Yeah, I have one more question. Since we don't have the chance to have you so often, sorry, I'm asking too many questions tonight. It's kind of following up on that I made about that of course personal responsibility plays a big role, but it's also in the encounter of a Buddha with a Buddha. An idea that I've been hearing about lately is in this encounter where understanding happens. And, you know, I find that very inspiring and supportive. That is not just one person, but is Buddhas together with Buddhas, or a Buddha together with a Buddha. That is in that encounter where, you know, things happen. So, and I wonder if you have any comments about that, even though you just mentioned now a little bit about the importance of each other, supporting each other. Thank you.
we don't, when we meet with each other, it's not necessary to say to ourselves, oh, I'm meeting with Buddha. That's a little heavy, you know. I think it's better just to say, I'm here in this moment with this person or these other people. I'm going to be fully here and experience it and enjoy it. So let's just enjoy each other without any preconditions, and help each other without hesitation in whatever large way or small way that we can. And then we can go on our way. Okay, thank you.
Any final questions? Vanessa?
It's not really a question, but I just wanted to express that it's nice to talk like this, you know, about being together and what we do with each other. But right now, I just feel like I'm barely with anyone.
Can you say that again, please?
I said, right now, I just feel like I'm barely with anybody. I just see people on screens the whole day.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and you know, yes, the youth we're given. And one thing I'm really amazed with is, you know, how resourceful we can be given so little, but it's painful. It's painful not to be able to touch people in the same way.
Well, I think most of us know how you feel. A year ago or a year and a half ago, when we could be with each other in formal ways and in informal ways, there was such a joy. Then we laughed and we felt good and we shared. And so that's been taken away from us, and it's painful. But I'm optimistic that we will return to those days of intimacy. So I'm planning to hold out for just a little bit longer because I have no other choice. So maybe we can find creative ways to be with each other a little bit more intimately using this particular kind of technology. Okay,
Sorry, I was mute. Any other questions before we close for tonight? All right, well, thank you, Les, for your talk. Do we have any announcements tonight?
Yes, our guest speaker next week is Travis. Travis.
Our speaker next Wednesday is Travis.
Travis, right? Oh, so I guess he doesn't have a talk, not a talk, a title.
No title
And
yet.
okay, good. And the other thing is the class with Kathy coming up this Saturday at from 8:30 a.m. till 10 a.m. And there is a link for registration. I'll paste it here in the chat. I'm sure you've already seen the announcement on the newsletter. It's called The Voice of the Buddha, and it will be a monthly class on the 4th Saturday of the month.
And that's focusing on sutras, right?
Yes, the teachings of the Buddha. And that's all. The links. So, Bonnie, if you want to continue.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Teresa, but okay. Great, so the class, okay, there will be a class with Kathy starting this Saturday at 8:30, right? And on the sutras, and I believe it's free. Welcome to everyone. Great. Any other announcements? Right, I think that's it. And Teresa just put the link in the chat. It just helps if we register ahead of time to let them know how many people are interested or coming. All right. And it's going to be like once a month, I believe, on the 4th Saturdays.
Yes. Sorry, my internet connection is not stable, but yes, once a month.
No problem. All right, we are closed for the evening. So thank you again, Les, for your talk, and thanks everyone for attending, and you're free to go now. And a quick reminder that these sessions are recorded. So if you want your question removed, send me a chat message before you leave. And you can also stay on and hang out for a few minutes if you want to. All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.